What is going on? It is Nate the Game Guy coming back with another video. Today, I thought it would be a nice topic to talk about what I consider to be some of the coolest accessories on the Xbox 360. The Xbox 360 is easily one of my favorite consoles to collect for, not only because it has a bunch of awesome games that I certainly enjoyed back in the day, but also because it is cheap and I consider it to be a relatively underrated console when it comes to collecting when compared to things such as the GameCube, Dreamcast, all that wonderful stuff. But today, we're going to be looking at the accessories. These are the different accessories that can be used for many different ways, whether it comes to making your Xbox 360 look even cooler or just adding a little bit of some variation to the gameplay to some of those games that you are playing. So without further ado, let's dive right into this video subject and take a look at some of the coolest Xbox 360 accessories, according to my opinion, right after the intro. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys may or may not remember, this was definitely a thing way back during the early days of the Xbox 360, and these were the faceplates. The faceplates were little covers that you could swap out with the original, and it would have multiple different variations, whether it comes to your favorite sports teams, your favorite games. There were essentially different kinds of faceplates for everyone. Of course, right here, I'm showing off a few of my faceplates that I own right here in the collection, and hands down, my favorite one happens to be the Viva Pinata faceplate. I am a huge fan of Viva Pinata. I consider it to be a very underrated game for the Xbox 360. Now, if you guys want to check out some underrated Xbox 360 titles that I recommend, I got another video that you guys can check out right here. I'll link it right here in the video. But when it comes to these faceplates, it just offers that extra level of customization you just don't see in modern day consoles today. Sure, you could make the argument that you could purchase some customized PS5 or Series X off of eBay or Etsy that somebody made, but when it comes to an official product that you can either buy from a store or Amazon, you just don't see this type of customization anymore. I gotta say, I was a huge fan of the faceplate customizations from back in the day. Hands down, what I gotta consider to be one of the coolest accessories for the 360. Now, I definitely got to talk about the super awesome, super cool limited edition Xbox 360 controllers. Now, don't get me wrong, the white and black Xbox 360 controllers are very iconic from back in their day. However, it's the limited edition controllers right here that give that extra pop to that experience from back in the day. Now, granted, there were some limited edition controllers that aren't as fancy as these that you guys can see right here. For example, the red Xbox 360 controller, which came with the limited edition Resident Evil 5 Xbox 360. Now, with these controllers right here, what I really like about them is just that extra detail that is put onto these controllers. Some of them do have a little bit of some transparency where you can get to see a little bit of the parts inside of the controller. Others have some little more detail with on the plastic, but a lot of these controllers right here, most of them could only be acquired if you were to buy a limited edition Xbox 360. For example, the Halo Reach controller could only come with the limited edition Xbox 360 of Halo Reach, along with the Halo 4 controller. Now, the ODST controller did come with the collector's edition of Halo 3 ODST, where in order to get that controller, you had to buy the collector's copy of Halo 3 ODST. Other controllers you could buy separately, but with some of these Halo themed controllers right here, as mentioned from before, they could only be acquired if you bought a limited edition release of the Xbox 360 back in the day. Hands down, these have to be some of the coolest controllers when it comes to that extra design, and I really like the accessories that just give that extra pop when it comes to the detail, just like the faceplates with these controllers as well. Gotta say, these controllers look so cool and are so appealing to the eye. Now, normally I don't like third-party accessories, but I gotta say this one is very unique. I'm talking about the Mad Catz arcade controller. Now, I think this is a controller that is definitely worth checking out if you're playing something old school and nostalgic on the Xbox 360, such as Pac-Man Championship Edition, Galaga, or even something like Aegis Wing, where it's really catered to that old school experience. This controller definitely adds on to that feel, and I feel like this controller is very similar to the Atari 2600's controller design. Now, the only thing that I don't like about using this controller is, to me, and I don't know if this is just me personally, but I do feel like when using this controller, not even for that long of a time, it gets very uncomfortable relatively fast, which is very unfortunate because I gotta say this would be something I would love to use for a lot longer when I'm playing something more old school when it comes to playing something on the Xbox 360. This was an accessory that I picked up for very cheap a very long time ago now at this point from a local pickup. Thought it was very cool, had to add it to the collection, and even though this is definitely not the most comfortable controller to use, it is something fun to sometimes use from time to time when playing one of those old school themed games on the 360. Now, of course, I've got another unique controller to show you guys, and I know a lot of fighting fans will remember these from back in the day on the Xbox 360, and I am talking about these Street Fighter controllers right here. What I like about these controllers is like they are essentially like the arcade fighting sticks that you would be able to get from back in the day for multiple different consoles, but clearly these are way more compact, and these controllers I feel are like a really nice mix between a normal controller and one of those like arcade fighting sticks that you could get from back in the day. Now, I am definitely trash when it comes to fighting games, but what's really nice about these controllers is that it made performing combos a lot easier for me. Not significantly better for me because, again, I'm trash at these games, but it definitely helped me out perform a few extra moves and combos that I normally wouldn't be able to do on a standard controller. What I also like about these controllers as well is not only the design of how it makes it easier for you to perform fighting moves and mechanics and get more familiar with fighting controls, but I also like the fact with these controllers as well, with just how well designed they are with their aesthetic look. The way how Ryu looks on this controller looks so clean, so well polished. Gotta say, he really pops out with this controller. Again, this is another third-party controller, and as mentioned from before, I'm normally not a fan of third-party accessories, but I gotta say, if anybody asked me what happens to be some of the best third-party accessories that you could buy for a console based on the quality and how well it is, gotta say these Street Fighter controllers really rank high up there when it comes to some of these third-party controllers. Now, another interesting controller that I want to talk about and share with you guys right here is the Xbox 360 wireless speed wheel. Now, this controller right here, what's really interesting about it is normally when you think of racing wheels for games, when it comes to racers for consoles in general, you normally think of this gigantic plastic racing wheel with a accelerator and a brake that you set up and all that. And even though Nintendo definitely beat Microsoft to offering that type of experience, even though it was just simply you placing the Wii remote into a gigantic plastic wheel, Microsoft did things differently when it came to the wireless speed wheel. This did implement motion control, but what's really nice about it is that it's not just you sticking some controller into a bunch of plastic. This controller right here does clearly use motion control, and it is an actual controller. I remember picking this up several years ago for really cheap, and I thought it was a very unique controller to use. Normally with me, I prefer to use a standard controller when it comes to racing games. However, I do think that this is a controller that is pretty unique, very interesting, and it's definitely pretty cool in my opinion, especially with how it's designed. It does feel like it has some pretty good quality to it, not just some cheap plastic like that you would see with a lot of those plastic racing wheels controls for the Wii back in the day. Microsoft did offer a bit of a quality experience with this controller. I did try a couple races on Forza Motorsport 4 with this one, and I gotta say I was pretty pleased. Gotta say this is a pretty interesting controller that I do think is pretty cool. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out my video. Please be sure to check out these videos here, and here. After all, I post a lot of content when it comes to game collecting tips, and other video game related subjects. So be sure to keep an eye out every Monday and Friday where I upload consistently, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.